Okay, so before you're wondering, no, it's actually rather hot here. I'm just wearing this hoodie because someone let the mosquitoes into the living room. Yeah, that's not a fun time for anyone. Hello, this is J.E. Realize, and you might be wondering why I'm making this video. Eurovision 2021 was last year. Well, two reasons. One, I never got to post my rankings on Eurovision 2021, what with YouTube being kinda nasty towards the whole putting your rankings as song clips. Also, no one really supporting that, which is rather anti everyone except the corporations. That's pro-corporation. And second, I needed to make some content. This was an easy way to make content. So where do I begin with Rotterdam 2021? Well, let's begin with 2020. We were going to be set up for Rotterdam in 2020. A lot of songs were selected, and, well, the contest never happened, really. And you know why? I don't have to elaborate. I still believe EBU could have held the contest and should have held the contest, and they could have done it without any audience. They could have made it all virtual. And I know this because they did kind of put a virtual option out there for the 2021 contest. Granted, I will give them leniency because of what happened this year in Torino. That was a mess. So, thank goodness I didn't watch any of the acts for 2020, except for some that have trickled in over the years. But that's a topic for several decades down the road. As for 2021, the idea was to bring the contest back in 2021. And they had four options, ranging from option A, which is business as usual, to option D, which is essentially all virtual. No one shows up at Rotterdam, but they send in taped performances. In the end, we ended up with option B. Not everyone could show up to Rotterdam, and attendance was kind of limited, but otherwise, it was basically the full package. So, I'll get into that whole feeling of seeing Eurovision again. But first, let's talk about how I got into watching Eurovision 2021. I decided I was going to watch a lot of the selected songs a few weeks early because I was at this point 2 years starved for new content, and I decided to bring my sister in this so we could watch a lot of the songs together. And at first, when I went through the entire playlist, at the end of it, I was like, that was it? Mainly because I had not been exposed to Eurovision in such a long time. But after a second and a third playthrough, staggered over a few days, I warmed up to the songs. I became excited for Eurovision again. And you know how my stance is with recent Eurovision, to try to figure out what watching solution works for me. Watching all the performances live, for instance, can be kind of stressful, but watching all the performances pre-recorded introduces potential for spoilers. Knowing all the songs that participated in all the national finals is pretty exciting and also gives you a lot of new songs, but a lot of those songs, especially ones you may really like, I'm looking at you, Melodifestivalen, can be knocked out of the competition and you just hate the acts they send instead. So for 2020, I decided not to watch any of the acts and wait until the contest actually started, which worked in my favor because I didn't get attached to any of the songs. 2021, I already told you, I knew some of the songs and I started getting into the nitty-gritty and even watching the dress rehearsals by the time we started the first semifinal. So let's get into that. And essentially, the first few minutes of Eurovision Besides the part where you got light refracting all of these pop-up houses across the Netherlands, which, by the way, I know someone from the Netherlands who recognizes one of the places that got the light refracted off of them. Not necessarily in this episode. I'm trying to keep it kind of secret. Because that person lives a few miles away from said location and pointed this out. But after that, it really felt like a Eurovision startup sequence. It's like, here we bring in the lights, we bring in the audience, we bring in the dancers, we bring in the pyro. Hey, look, there's Duncan Lawrence. Hope you had your fill because you won't be seeing him in the final. I'm getting to that. But it really felt like Eurovision, after being dormant for so long, it's only been 2 years, is finally roaring back at full potency. And then you get the 4 hosts. Yeah, 4. One of them is notable for having a makeup tutorial show, but there's another one I'm also really interested in because she represented the Netherlands in 2007 and got eliminated in the qualifiers. Wow, it's like, really? Are you that short-staffed, Netherlands? Wait, she was in the contest in 1998? And placed 4th? Dagnabbit, I only watched the Eurovision Song Contest from 1999 and after. How was I supposed to know this? At this point, while I'm going through the classic Eurovisions, I'm at 1969. I still have a ways to go. But that's neither here nor there. Apparently she does have knowledge of being in a Eurovision Grand Final, except they didn't call them Grand Finals back then. I'll continue before I embarrass myself. The format of the show, like where they would show the countries in the running order graphics, is really nice, neat, and polished, and certainly a change up from what we've been doing from 2016 to 2019 inclusive. I mean, they had 2 years, but dagnabbit, it really looked clean and sharp and simple. Not a lot of people appreciate that, but I do. It really makes all the different colors stand out, and it isn't just a mess of gradients, you know what I mean? Now let's go into the postcards before we head into the actual performances. And the performances I'm going to talk about in the semifinals, I'm not going to elaborate on much in the grand final because you know them already. As for the postcards, there were these pop-up shops all over the Netherlands, and slowly these pop-up shops start to materialize stuff that the participants have, and also materialize videos on what they've done, who they are. And then we get this holographic image of the person or people representing their country and just being who they are. That's a really nice touch and a bit of a sharp contrast to all the previous Eurovision postcards. Like, for the past few years, they've been kind of getting funny with the postcards, especially in 2019 when they decided, oh, let's have all these people dance while pushing this play button. I don't know how I feel about that. This one, it's just simple, it's just clean, it works with the times, and it really sheds some light on these performers without it being cheesy. And speaking of cheesy, let's go into the first act, which is represented by the Roop from Lithuania. Apparently, these guys I have seen before because I've watched the Lithuanian national final in 2018. So we go in with this knowledge in mind, or rather, I go in with this knowledge in mind. And the first few seconds of the song really fit the whole Eurovision is getting back into gear narrative with the, oh yeah, I feel the rhythm. Something's going on here. It really feels like they're getting back into the mojo. This song also has some traces of, you know, where it came from. What's with the whole shelter in place and the whole stay-at-home thing. I know I said basically the same thing, but you know how it is. People like to put different names on the same thing. It's like with WWE, you got your no disqualification match, you got your Extreme Rules match, you got your no holds barred, and all this sort of stuff that's neither here. And these guys are basically just dancing in lemon suits straight out of the Black Mirror episode 15 Million Merits. Really? This isn't Bothergut, you know? And they got these trippy graphics, not like trippy AR visual effects, but just the screens are rather trippy. The music is rather trippy, but also very catchy, very danceable. It's a nice, fine way of getting yourself back into the mood, and I really appreciate that the person who set up the running order decided to put Lithuania first. It's as if he knew that we needed this to just get our headspace right again. Especially since the next song was from Slovenia, and Slovenia sent in a ballad called Amen. By the way, there's another song in the same competition called Amen. That's in the second semifinal. I wasn't really feeling this song. It's your standard Eurovision ballad. The lyrics are not particularly inspired. Like, why you're cowering in fright doesn't really scan. It's just fine. It's nothing special. Oh, by the way, I'm not doing the whole secrecy level or mystery level thing because I know these songs already. So let's just get that right out the door. Third up is Manisa, and she sent quite an impressive song. It's like very ethnically styled and whatnot. If I had made this video in 2021, I would elaborate a bit more. But since this is 2022 when I'm making this video, and we have a few current world events going on about, and Reddit is striking down a bunch of people for saying the R word, no, not that R word character from Glee, the other one, then I will not elaborate. You know who Manisa is, and apparently she wasn't the act that was supposed to go in 2020. But I will give mad respect on that nice fusion of traditional and modern, the energy, the spunk. Love her. Really do love her. One song I'm not particularly fond of is Sweden. I'm pretty hard on Sweden because I know they can do well. Like, for example, they sent in Undo, Euphoria, Heroes. In 2019, they sent in Too Late for Love, and that was my favorite song of that year, Fight Me. But many times, they send in songs that just miss the mark. If I Were Sorry is just a disappointing Radio Disney offering, I Can't Go On is almost sexual assault, and Dance You Off is some Justin Bieber knockoff. And in those same years, in Melodi Festival, they had offerings that they could have sent, which would have caught my attention. For example, in 2017, they could have sent in Hold On by Nano. That was a real nice, refreshing song, and kind of elaborated on the Swedish music scene as well, and had a really nice, empowering story. They didn't go for that because of the stupid voting system. And in 2018, they had Every Single Day, which I understand while some people don't particularly like the idea of sending every single day in 2018, they would rather send every day rather than every single day, if you catch my drift. I would say that this would be an excellent choice for Sweden to give the middle finger to Portugal with the whole music is not fireworks, music is feeling message that they gave us. And it would certainly be a little bit more emotional than what we got in 2018. But, again, stupid voting system. Although this time the public agreed with the jury. What was that? So yeah, I'm pretty hard on Sweden. Voices... Okay, we're just gonna put away the Million Voices reference because a million people have done this by now. The woodwind start was pretty neat. It was promising something. But the rest of the song, not so much. Okay, you had the lights, but that's standard. The lyrics were kind of basic and uninspired. I feel like the performance was just trying to make the song better than it was, and it just fell flat. This was pretty far down my personal ranking list for that semifinal. This is, honestly, like, I would expect this sort of song from, I don't know, any of the other Nordic countries, maybe. But Sweden? I know they can do better. And this is not it, Chief. Next we move on to Australia, which has the disheartening misfortune of not being able to show up to Rotterdam. They did compete, except with a whole live-on-tape situation, what with quarantine laws, and also you have to travel half the world to get to Rotterdam to begin with. But basically what happened is they couldn't show up. So basically the participating broadcaster that couldn't compete in Rotterdam sets up an EBU compliant stage and has their performer perform in it 3 times. And the broadcaster selects the best performance, sends it over to Rotterdam ahead of time, and that's what we got for Montaigne and the song Technicolor. Which, by the way, what's with all these songs talking about Technicolor? You do realize that this is a color film processing method, right? Like, the coloring of the film, as opposed to all the other colors, some of them not so reliable, and we only see reds in those colors. People are just making a lot big of a deal over Technicolor. It's like, yeah, it was good for the time. A lot of people did Technicolor, but the song was fine. It was really spunky, and I'll give them that, but I mean, it's not really that interesting. Also, since they couldn't be in Rotterdam, instead of them being in the green room after they performed, which, by the way, is smack dab in the center of the arena surrounding the stage. By the way, all of the audience is basically surrounding the center of the stage, which I gotta say is a good idea, especially for the time, and really also cuts down on the whole stage invader potential. Instead of that, the people got to sit in a big old comfy couch back at home. So honestly, I was secretly hoping for them to be eliminated so we didn't have that sort of technical feat that often. Like, if Australia didn't show up to the final, then we would have basically everyone performing live on stage. I'll get back to that in semi-final 2. Next up, we got North Macedonia and Vasil with the light-up suit. And basically, he sent in a Disney Renaissance song. You know, one of those songs you would hear like in Aladdin or Hercules or Lion King. You know, I'd go down the list. That's what my sister referred to this as. And yeah, it really is a Disney Renaissance movie kind of song. At least it has a market. Ireland was up next, and they decided to just throw everything and the kitchen sink into the mess by making all of these paper props and optical illusions for the performer. And that, I'll give them credit, that was one very captivating performance, but would that be enough for them to qualify? I have a feeling they shouldn't qualify because they tried too hard. Also, the song in the studio version was definitely better than the version we got at Eurovision. The studio version honestly sounds like it should track in the United States. The performance we got, maybe it's due to the whole Irish undertones in her accent singing, or the fact that she can't really sing that well. It just lost me. Again, I'd like to state this. I do not give any disrespect to any of the performers based on any of the performers' traits or where they happen to come from. I am rating on the music. I am rating on the performance. You know, stuff of merit. And sure, music is subjective, but performances tell you a lot about what works and what doesn't, especially if you know firsthand what the public reacts to. In the case of Ireland, they're just trying too hard. Next up is Cyprus, and I will admit, what with Cyprus sending in all of these Fuego copycats, this is not unexpected of them. But I really like El Diablo, even more than Fuego. I didn't really care that much about Fuego, and I certainly didn't care about Replay. The one thing I can say about Cyprus's 2019 performance is that it gave me Infinity Train vibes, surprisingly, what with the backup dancers. Which isn't much, but considering I said that Delaware's 2022 song also gave me Infinity Train vibes, it's weird that I've mentioned it twice. 2 nickels. Ninth in the running order is Norway, and it's being performed by Tix, which I thought was shortened for tickets, which I thought was a rather underhanded yet creative way of selling more tickets at the box office. But no, that's not what I meant. I will give credit though, he's quite a lovable log, and like he really feels like a friend that I should actually know in real life. Is like the kind of huggable friend, is like, oh, you know, simply the friendliness vibes. As for the performance, they had to cut out 2 of the demons because the original act had 7 performers, and they needed to cut out enough to make it an even number of demons pulling on ticks and that sort of stuff. And Fallen Angel gave me a lot of anime closer vibes, you know? The kind of song that would play at the end of those shows, and you know what? I'll give them credit for that, making me feel something. Someone should totally make an AMV out of this, which wouldn't be the only time I say this in Eurovision, or even in this year's Eurovision. But we'll get to that again in semifinal 2. I kind of want him to do well. It's like he's got the heart. Then we move on to Croatia with a very striking modern sound. It's like I want her to qualify simply on that with the song TikTok, which now is not a reference to Ukraine's 2014 entry or Kesha's 2010 song or the app, which less said about the app the better. The performance, I guess it works for the song, so I and a lot of people were kind of hoping that Croatia made it to the final. Croatia kind of needs to make it to the final considering they're not doing so well in Eurovision. And you know, when a country doesn't do so well in Eurovision, and they're not a mainstay in the competition anyway, and they kind of arrived kind of late, they're looking at the side of the wall on their calendar and thinking, wouldn't it be better if we just didn't spend the hundreds of thousands of euro to do that? And yes, I know, Croatia won't adopt the euro until 2023, but seriously. Next up is and they're sending in Hooverphonic. And I only knew they were sending in Hooverphonic because I was kind of keeping track of the Eurovision announcements in 2019 up until September-ish, October-ish, and then just kind of cut myself off to steel myself for 2020. And Hooverphonic was among the first participants to be announced for the contest, alongside Vincent Bueno and Victoria, which, by the way, all of them are here in Eurovision 2021. They actually got selected again. But we'll get to that again in semifinal 2. The song, though, is not really my style. I appreciate it for being adult contemporary, and it's a pretty solid package, but it's not really my thing. It's the only song I would kind of place below Sweden, really. Ouch. Next we move on to Israel with a also kind of modern sounding song. I didn't really care that much for Israel's entry. It was just kind of there. I can't really say much more about it. Although the hair and the outfit, I have to acknowledge those. Those were wild. Next we move on to Romania. So Romania has trouble qualifying for Eurovision since 2017. Basically in 2018 they had this super spectacular, ultra stacked national final planned for the 100th anniversary of the integration of Transylvania or something or other that would make Lithuania blush. And they held the contest in wherever arena they could find. They even held it in a salt mine. And at the very end, they selected The Humans and the song Goodbye, which didn't qualify for the final. Dagnabbit. So in 2019, they tried again and sent in an arguably better song called On a Sunday. And it gave, some of that Romanian vampiric vibes. Yeah, I know. Also didn't qualify. Are you kidding me? They still gotta celebrate their 100th anniversary somehow. Then we move on to 2020, which didn't happen. And then we finally move on to 2021, where we got Roxanne. And Roxanne's song was admittedly pretty chill, speaks to the soul, that sort of stuff. It warmed me up a bit, and I thought, maybe this is a song that will finally get Romania to celebrate their 103rd anniversary of the reintegration of Transylvania or something or other like that. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I know, I still have yet to get into the actual qualifiers. But apparently it's okay, because in 2022, they qualified with Yamame. Really? Spoofing the Spanish was all it took to get a qualification? They didn't even use Mandinga! Really? And of course, those guys in 2022 got creamed by Spain. They came and said, and just wiped the floor with them. Okay, it's coincidental, but I cannot shake that image. So yeah, cool song, Roxy. Azerbaijan sent in a song called Matahari, and that got me learning a lot of stuff. I thought Matahari was just some sort of random ethnic Turkish phrase that I just had no idea what it was. But turns out that Matahari refers to a person who grew up in the Dutch East Indies and then went over to Europe to collect some secrets from the Allied forces for the Central Powers. Obviously, the story has to be a bit more nuanced than that, right? But to be honest, I don't really have much else to say about Matahari. But apparently, there's already been another song in Eurovision called Matahari, which means Father Ted lied to me, because you had this artist saying, oh, this is the act that represented Norway in 1976. They got 5th place. Matahari did not get 5th place. The song itself is kind of dull. It leans on the ethnic thing and poking fun at the Netherlands like Azerbaijan is wont to do. Not necessarily for the Netherlands. And yeah, there's dancing, of the exotic variety. But I just didn't really care. Maybe it was the fact that these people were wearing body stockings, but it just didn't really strike me as anything special. Next, we move on to Ukraine. Back in 2021, when I heard this song and watched the video, I was like, Ukraine is gearing themselves up. They are ready to take on all comers. And in fact, that is not what I would have said in 2021, but you can guess what I would have said. Flash cut to 1 year later. But back to 2021. Ukraine's song is... Wow, okay. So they threw in this ethnic EDM sort of stuff and just keep increasing the tempo, and it's kind of crazy. Especially when we get into the final part of the song where all the graphics are just people running toward you. It tells you a lot about the mindset. I give full credit for this song being so bold, and I love it. I'm starting to feel a little bit warm here. And we really need to fumigate this house one day. This house is cursed. And finally, we move on to Malta. And Malta decided, let's host X Factor Malta. And also they decided, let's give this famous Eurovision performer a shot to represent Malta. And did I say Eurovision? I meant Junior Eurovision. She won Junior Eurovision in 2015 with Not My Soul. And this song is a stark departure from Not My Soul. Not My Soul was a CeeLo Green Forget You knockoff. This song, however, this had character. Admittedly, this is a different Destiny to what I was accustomed to, but you know, if you say anything like that, you get criticized by a lot of people who tell you that people are allowed to change. No one, not even me, said people aren't allowed to change. But dang, the spice is so pronounced. And in fact, due to the message of the song and also that she says, I'm not your baby, I'm going to give Destiny 2021 the Stevani Award for having a song that is just an anthem for Stevani from Steven Universe. And I had thought about who to give the 2022 Stevani Award to. That award goes to Ireland's 2022 song. Easily. The whole thing about, like, it's the kind of song that would be like Stevani reacting to Kevin and talking back at him for, you know, the quips and one-liners he likes to say to pick up chicks. It's like definite fit. Still don't know what the song is called. Someone, I'm waiting for you to comment down below. Tell me what Ireland's 2022 song was called, because the teleprompter functioned in that semifinal, so I'll never know. But yeah, Stevani Award 2021 goes to Malta. And I'll give people credit for this song. This is a really nice song, and something Elizabeth Von Presley. Also notable to mention is that Destiny was supposed to go on stage with a pink dress. They pulled back a bit. Big mistake. Never pull your punches. I would have loved to see that. I would have been fine with seeing that. Now that we are done with that, it's finally time to go into the recap. Yada yada, we already know that. Interval acts include this weird, bizarre music video slash stage performance, and we also get part one of this winners presentation where you get winners reflecting on how winning Eurovision has changed them. And also Nikki Tutorials does her own segment called Eurovision Tutorials. And Duncan shows up and picks up this Global Platinum Award, which I'm like, is that even real? People make up awards for so many things, and those many things get popular. It's ridiculous. And we also get some snippets of songs from the automatic qualifiers. In this case, Italy, Germany, and the Netherlands. And you can watch them on Eurovision.tv, or at least you could watch them on Eurovision.tv. You could also watch them on the Eurovision YouTube channel, but it's like their grand final performances are already out there, so there really is no need, unless you're an archivist. I won't go into the acts that Italy, Germany, or the Netherlands would send in, because I'm going to do that in the grand final, obviously. But let's get into the qualifiers. But before that, the main reason why I wanted to release this video, my ranking of semi-final 1. And I made this list with both knowledge of what their song was in the national final and what it sounded like in the music video, as well as, and this is more weighted, the performance in the semi-final, or the grand final if that's applicable. I did not change these rankings since then, so they have remained static since 2021, and I could feel a lot differently about these songs. But I will not let the future get in the way of my past. Also, I won't go into the qualifiers, mainly because I'm not in the mood to just list everything. You know, we got Norway, we got Belgium, we got Israel, we got Ukraine, we got Lithuania, Malta, we got Azerbaijan, we got Sweden for some reason, we got Cyprus, and we got Macedonia. And I will give 2021 credit, because in 2021, the last entrants that qualified through the semifinal to the final were songs that I was hoping for, waiting on the edge of my seats, and then they finally called. In this case, it was Ukraine. I'm like, nice, good. I wanted this. Thank you, Eurovision, because usually they disappointed me on the last announcement. Eurovision 2022 kind of disappointed me on the last announcement. I mean, you sent it in Serbia. I would prefer Georgia over Serbia, and I'm not talking about Stella Cole here. But yeah, we got the qualifiers, and might as well prepare yourself for episode 2. Wow, what a train wreck that's gonna be. Do the feedback thing. Like, comment, subscribe, or dislike because I didn't mention that one country by name. But honestly, the algorithm would have shot me down. Do you even make YouTube videos? Follow me on Twitter at JERealize. This has been JERealize. I'll see you next time, and there will be a next time.